You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
It is Marvelous Monday, March 11th.
Wow.
You like that?
Did you practice that?
Nope.
That was good.
Yeah. It's also missing an hour Monday.
Oh, yeah. I was fine yesterday, and I was like, this is great. And then I had to wake up early this morning so I could ride my bike in, and yeah, I feel it.
All of our friends who live in municipalities that do not participate in daylight saving time are perfectly fine.
They're all laughing at us right now.
They are.
I saw some of them laughing at us on Facebook yesterday.
It is Monday, and it's a good week, but it is the Monday after time change. So how many people were late to church yesterday?
Our late service was packed yesterday, and I was like, oh, this is great. Look at all these people. And then when I was talking to my parents last night, they were like, yeah, our service was, everyone was late. I was like, oh, right. That's why late service was so full.
Two great topics on deck today. The Concordia Apologetics Conference coming up, and so we're going to share that. And how can you serve in your community with your congregation in response to a disaster, an emergency? How can you be prepared to serve in response to that? A really great program that's been implemented around the I was going to say around the country, but it's really been used in internationally as well.
It has.
The LERT, or Lutheran Early Response or Emergency Response Training. We'll
Probably
get that.
Should have written that in the program notes, shouldn't I?
We'll get to that in just a little bit. Thanks to our friends at Concordia University Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about them at cuw.edu, and that's where we are going this morning as well. Dr. Kirk Taylor, faculty advisor to the Undergraduate Pre-professional Church Work organization, the UPCO at CUW.
So many letters.
I'm a DCE in the LCMS, and I work at KFUO. Dr. Taylor, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, Andrew. Sarah, nice talking to you again. I think it was probably about a year ago you and I had a conversation about our Director of Church Ministries program here at Concordia. So if we can talk once a year, I'm good. I'm happy with that.
Also joining us, Stephen Krycho Jr. He's undergraduate of classical education, undergraduate pre-professional church work organization, conference director for Concordia University, Wisconsin. Stephen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
This is exciting, a conference on apologetics. What is the Concordia Apologetics Conference?
So the Concordia Apologetics Conference is an annual lecture series on apologetics and related topics hosted on Concordia's campus by the Undergraduate Pre-professional Church Work Organization, which is a group of undergraduates dedicated to fields pertaining to future service in the church.
And who typically attends these conferences? Is it meant for more students or lay people, the community at large?
It's a combination. The conference is attended by university students and local church parishioners. Anyone who's interested in apologetics and related topics. It's usually a smaller conference, seeing about 50 or a little over 100, depending on the year.
What have some of the other topics been for these conferences?
The first three were very centered on apologetics, kind of what apologetics is, looking at truth, looking at different cultural apologetics. And then last year, we switched focuses a little bit and went with bioethics and looked at some of the ethical dilemmas.
Ooh, that sounds like it would be really interesting. Why is this kind of conference important, and why is it something that the UPCO for church workers? Why is this something that this organization puts on?
In this case, it will be covering classical education, which I wanted to focus on for two reasons. First, I wanted to promote the new classical studies major and classical pedagogy minor, as well as the new Great Text Pathway, which gives students the opportunity to really dig into primary sources that they would otherwise be reading about or excerpting. Second, I want to show that apologetics is not just a class or a subject. It's a way of teaching and learning that equips students of Scripture to think well about biblical and worldly claims. And this way of teaching is very classical and Lutheran in nature. And this year, since the Consortium for Classical Lutheran Education is supporting the conference, we'll also put interested parents and students in contact with them. And they've been an invaluable resource for classical educators.
Let's dig into that a little bit more. Why classical education is important to you and to other students who are preparing for professional church work.
In my case, I have found that classical education really addresses learning in a way that's very unique to the lifelong experience instead of a mere training for a job or a minimum requirement common language-based learning. So what it does is it digs into things like character and wisdom and eloquence and communication with others in the world. And I think in that way it's very unique, and I want to be a part of it.
Dr. Taylor, it sounds like the students really organized this event and planned for this event. Why is it important for students to be providing that direction for this event?
Yeah, all of these students are going to be church workers, and as you know, as a DCE working in a congregation, you have to be a self-starter, you have to be a self-motivator, and you have to be able to follow through on things. And this conversation that we're having is a perfect example. Stephen has everything figured out, everything lined up, and I'm just kind of sitting back listening because that's what this organization does. These students have done everything except when they needed some money, and then they say, "Can we have your signature here?" But what they do is not just this conference. They'll have monthly lectures here on campus where various professionals and professors will speak on a topic, and these students line all of that up. So in addition to being a resource for students here to learn about apologetics, and in this case, classical education, these students are preparing themselves for life in church work.
How does the topic of classical education relate to apologetics? I don't know. When I think of apologetics, I don't necessarily go to classical education, but how do those two things fit together?
I think they're very complementary is the right word to use, because the objective of apologetics is to aid the Christian in his pursuit of truth by providing him with the tools to discuss biblical facts rationally and to defend against the false assertions of the world. And it's really a way of teaching. It's not like a Band-Aid that we put on after the fact when all of a sudden the claims in education don't line up with the claims in church. It's supposed to go together. What we learn in church and what we learn in the school are both truth, and apologetics helps us show that the truths that we study in Scripture are truths of reality, and they are sometimes at odds with other truths that we are taught in school. So it helps flesh out the difference.
So you mentioned that CCLE, the Classical Consortium for Lutheran Education, is helping out with the conference, and the lineup of speakers looks great. Who are some of the speakers that will be at this conference?
Well, we have 3 keynote speakers this year. Dr. Gene Edward Veith Jr. is our visiting speaker. He's actually returning, more accurately. He was a professor at Concordia, Wisconsin in the past before he taught at Patrick Henry. We also have Dr. Susan Mobley of our history department and Dr. Brian Harries of our English department, and they will be tackling the other keynote lectures.
What are you looking forward to most at this conference, particularly that relates to you and your future vocation?
I really love seeing so many interested local parishioners and students just come and learn and explore topics that you don't often get to hear about, especially when I get to put people in contact with things like the Consortium for Classical Education. It's really about the building up the connections and the future for these students who are going into education so that they have opportunities to get into contact with these types of people.
So what are the details? How do we register? How do we need to register, and where would we find the conference?
Yes, so there is a registration page on our school website. I am not sure how easy it is to find. There's also a flyer circulating in some local churches that has the link on it. It's on my Facebook page.
We'll provide the link on the program notes today as well.
Yeah, we will. It is a little long, but we'll have it.
Okay, thank you. The regular registration ticket is $50. The student ticket is $8, and the Concordia student is free. And even for the Concordia students, we do like them to register early, so we have a head count. And the dates of the conference are March 29th and March 30th, so it's coming up in just a couple of weeks. And it starts at 5 p.m. on Friday and goes to 4 p.m. on Saturday.
Very good. So a good weekend of learning and fellowship as well, all gathered around this important topic of apologetics and classical Lutheran education. Any other details that we need to know as we prepare? We'll provide the link in the program notes. And registration, is there a deadline for registration?
There is not a deadline for registration. You can register the day of.
All right. And this is coming up March 29th and 30th. What's the location on campus?
On campus, it will be held in the pharmacy building.
All right. Very good. Well, Dr. Taylor, thank you so much for being our guest this morning. Thanks for being a part of the coffee hour and sharing with us the Concordia Apologetics Conference.
Andrew and Sarah, thank you. Anytime we have a chance to talk about the great things happening in Concordia, Wisconsin, we'd love to come on and tell you about them.
And Stephen Krycho, junior undergraduate of classical education and undergraduate in pre-professional church work organization, conference director for Concordia University Wisconsin. Stephen, thanks so much for being our guest today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Blessings in the upcoming conference.
Thank you.
Coming up in just a little bit, we'll learn how to prepare for response to emergencies, particularly as Lutherans. How do we respond to emergencies? You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.